Secrets in the Brickwork by Edwina Longbottom. Chapter 1. A Dream Begins. Emma and Jake stood on the cobblestone path, their breaths fogging the crisp Kent air as they gazed at the house before them. It was theirs. The quaint village of Ashurst, steeped in centuries-old charm, had embraced them from the moment they first visited. The house, with its ivy-covered brick facade and weathered wooden shutters, stood like a sentry guarding untold stories. Though it showed its age, there was a warmth in its bones, a sense of belonging they couldn't ignore. "This is it," Emma whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. She tightened her scarf against the autumn chill and turned to Jake, her eyes alight with dreams. "This is where we'll build our life." Jake smiled, his gloved hands gripping the brass key. "Let's make it ours." He inserted the key into the heavy oak door, the lock resisting briefly before giving way with a satisfying click. The door creaked open, revealing a dim hallway cloaked in dust and shadows. Sunlight struggled through the grime on the leaded windows, illuminating the motes that danced in the air. The faint scent of aged wood and musty fabric greeted them, a perfume of history. Emma stepped inside first, her boots echoing on the creaking floorboards. She trailed her fingers along the walls, feeling the grooves and imperfections. "Imagine the lives this house has seen, if only these walls could talk." Jake chuckled, setting down the box he carried. "They'd probably tell us to get to work. This place is going to need a lot of TLC." They spent the morning exploring, discovering quirks and hidden gems in the house. The bay window in the front room, Emma decided, would become her reading nook, complete with a plush armchair and shelves overflowing with books. Jake envisioned knocking down walls to create an open-plan kitchen and living area, bathed in natural light. By afternoon, armed with tools and an unshakable determination, they began their renovation journey. Laughter echoed as they stripped layers of wallpaper, revealing floral patterns that seemed to date back to the war years. Each layer felt like peeling back time, uncovering glimpses of the lives that had come before. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow through the windows, Jake's hammer struck something unexpected. The hollow sound broke the rhythm of their work. He froze, his brow furrowing. "Emma, come here." She hurried over, wiping paint from her hands onto her jeans. "What is it?" Jake tapped the spot again, the hollow echo unmistakable. They exchanged a look of curiosity and excitement before carefully prying away the paneling. Behind it, nestled in a cavity within the wall, lay a small, dust-covered box. Emma reached for it, her hands trembling slightly. The leather-bound object inside was delicate but remarkably intact. She brushed away the dust to reveal faint embossing on the cover, General Bernard Montgomery. Her breath caught. "Jake, do you think this is real?" Jake carefully opened the box, revealing a diary filled with neat, precise handwriting and yellowed pages. His voice was hushed with awe. "If it is, we've just uncovered something incredible." They sat on the attic steps, thumbing through the diary's contents by the dim light of a single bulb. The pages seemed to pulse with history, each word a window into a world long past. The house, it seemed, held more than bricks and mortar. It held secrets, secrets that had waited decades to be discovered. Chapter 2. Unraveling the Past. The house stood silent under the silver glow of the stecked moon, its shadows elongating across the cobblestone path outside. Inside, the living room had transformed into a makeshift research space. Emma and Jake sat surrounded by open boxes, forgotten paint cans, and scraps of wallpaper. On the coffee table lay the diary, a relic of history that pulsed with an almost palpable energy. "Can you believe this?" Jake said, shaking his head as he turned another page. The neat script of General Bernard Montgomery flowed across the aged paper, his thoughts and observations preserved as though he had written them just yesterday. Emma, sitting cross-legged on the floor with her notebook, looked up. "It's surreal. I mean, Montgomery and Hess, if this is authentic, it changes so much." The diary revealed clandestine meetings between General Montgomery and Rudolf Hess, the high-ranking Nazi official who had famously flown to Scotland in 1941 in an apparent attempt to negotiate peace. Official accounts painted Hess as a prisoner, isolated and dismissed as mentally unstable. But the words before them hinted at something far more complex. "Listen to this," Jake said, his voice low as if the walls themselves might overhear. Hess spoke of a vision, a caged eagle, powerful but powerless. He believes freedom can only come through peace. His words lingered with me long after he left. Emma's eyes widened. It's like he's trying to justify his actions. Do you think Hess was genuine? Or was he manipulating Montgomery? Jake shrugged. It's hard to say, but what's clear is that they talked deeply and often. These aren't the notes of someone dismissing a madman. Montgomery respected him, or at least found him intriguing. The diary entries were interspersed with sketches, delicate drawings of landscapes, soldiers, and even Hess himself in moments of apparent contemplation. Emma marveled at the artistry. Montgomery wasn't just a strategist. He was human. These sketches show a side of him history books don't. Days turned into weeks as the couple balanced renovation work with their deep dive into the diary. Mornings were spent sanding floors and repainting walls. Evenings found them huddled over the diary, deciphering Montgomery's handwriting and piecing together the fragmented narrative. The entries detailed secret meetings held in secluded wartime safe houses, where the two men discussed not only military strategy but the moral weight of leadership. Montgomery described Hess as a man tormented by contradictions, an architect of war longing for peace, a believer in the Nazi cause, yet desperate to end its destruction. "This part's incredible," Emma said one evening, holding up a page. Hess confided that some of the Enigma codes were known to him. He offered them, not as a betrayal of his nation, but as a plea to end the bloodshed. Jake leaned back, his eyes wide. If that's true, Hess wasn't just a defector. He was trying to change the course of the war. The couple's fascination with the diary grew into an obsession. They scoured the local library and online archives for references to Montgomery and Hess that might corroborate the diary's contents. They found only whispers, rumors of unrecorded wartime meetings, hints in declassified documents, but nothing concrete. Their evenings stretched late into the night, the flickering light of a single lamp casting long shadows in the living room. They spoke in hushed tones, as if the weight of the diary's secrets demanded reverence. One particular passage struck a chord with Emma. I asked him why he came to us, knowing he would likely be imprisoned or worse. He looked at me with eyes weary beyond his years and said, "Because someone must try. Someone must take the risk." She set the diary down, her fingers tracing the leather cover. "Jake, this isn't just a historical artifact. It's a window into the moral dilemmas of war. It shows the gray areas we always ignore in favor of black and white narratives." Jake nodded. "And it begs the question, what do we do with it? If this gets out, it could change how people see both Montgomery and Hess. Are we ready for that responsibility?" The couple began to notice a strange tension creeping into their lives. The diary felt like a living presence in the house, its contents challenging their beliefs and reshaping their understanding of history. The house itself seemed to respond, the creaks and groans of its old wood echoing like whispers of the past. Their neighbors in Ashurst were intrigued by the young couple's fascination with history. When Emma and Jake casually mentioned their find during a chat at the local pub, the response was immediate. "You've got yourself a piece of wartime mystery," said Evelyn LeClaire, a retired history professor and local curator. Her eyes sparkled with interest. "Montgomery and Hess, you say? If you've really found proof of their meetings, you've uncovered something historians have speculated about for decades." The weight of the diary's contents grew heavier as Emma and Jake uncovered more. It wasn't just a relic, it was a challenge to the accepted narrative, a story waiting to be told. But how, and to whom, and at what cost? The diary had begun as an unexpected discovery, a curiosity hidden behind old plaster. Now it was pulling them into a labyrinth of history, morality, and the responsibility of truth. Chapter 3: The Moral Crossroads. Emma and Jake sat across from each other at the kitchen table, their untouched mugs of tea growing cold. The diary lay between them like an uninvited guest, its presence as heavy as the questions it raised. "Do we even have the right to decide what happens to this?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. Her voice trembled slightly, the weight of the diary's revelations pressing on her shoulders. Jake leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. What I do know is that if we reveal this, it's going to cause waves. Not just in history books, but in how people see the war, how they see Hess and even Montgomery." This isn't just a story, it's rewriting a part of history. Emma nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the diary. But if we bury it, we're no better than those who've hidden inconvenient truths for centuries. People deserve to know the full picture, even if it's uncomfortable. Their debate stretched into the afternoon, neither of them able to fully commit to a course of action. The diary's contents were too monumental to ignore, yet the repercussions of its release felt almost impossible to predict. What if it vindicated Hess in ways history might not be ready for? What if it tarnished Montgomery's legacy, overshadowing his undeniable contributions to the Allied victory? Seeking guidance, they decided to approach Evelyn LeClaire, the retired history professor they'd met at the pub. If anyone could help them navigate the complexities of their discovery, it was her. The village hall was quiet when they arrived, the late afternoon sunlight casting long shadows across its weathered stone facade. Inside, Evelyn greeted them warmly, her keen eyes immediately noticing the tension etched on their faces. "You've found something remarkable," she said as they handed her the diary. She placed it on the table and carefully began to turn its pages, her expression shifting from curiosity to deep concentration. For nearly an hour she read in silence, occasionally pausing to study a passage or a sketch. When she finally looked up, her face was a mixture of awe and concern. "This is extraordinary," she said softly. "If authentic, it's one of the most significant discoveries of wartime history in decades. But with that significance comes responsibility." Emma leaned forward. "That's what we're struggling with. How do we share this without it becoming a spectacle, without it being misinterpreted or sensationalized?" Evelyn folded her hands on the table, her gaze thoughtful. "History is as much about what we choose to reveal as it is about what we choose to conceal. You're holding a piece of a story that's been hidden for a reason. That doesn't mean it should stay hidden, but it does mean you need to think carefully about how to bring it to light." Jake exhaled deeply. "So what do we do?" Evelyn's eyes softened. "Start small. Document everything. Verify the diary's authenticity as thoroughly as possible before making any public announcements. And when you're ready to share it, do so in a way that prioritizes the historical and ethical context. This isn't just a relic, it's a responsibility." That evening, Emma and Jake returned home with a renewed sense of purpose, but also a deeper understanding of the challenges ahead. They cleared a wall in the living room and began pinning up sketches, passages, and notes from the diary, creating a visual map of its contents. It became their war room, a space where they could organize their thoughts and decide how best to proceed. The wall quickly filled with connections, mentions of secret wartime safe houses, cryptic references to Enigma codes, and even a passage hinting at Hess's personal struggle with guilt over the war's devastation. Each piece added depth to the puzzle, but also raised new questions. As they worked, the weight of their decision loomed over them. Revealing the diary could spark a historical reevaluation of Hess and Montgomery's roles in the war. It could challenge deeply held beliefs and ignite debates that might never be resolved. But hiding it would feel like a betrayal of the truth. One night, as they sat by the fire, Emma broke the silence. "Jake, do you ever think about the people who lived here before us? About why they hid the diary?" Jake nodded, staring into the flames. "All the time. I wonder if they were protecting it, or if they were protecting themselves from what it might reveal." Emma leaned her head against his shoulder. "I just hope we're making the right choice. For them, for us, and for history." Jake wrapped an arm around her, his voice steady. "We'll figure it out together. Whatever happens, we'll make sure this story is told the way it deserves to be." The diary had become more than a historical artifact. It was a crossroads, forcing Emma and Jake to confront the complexities of truth and the responsibilities that came with uncovering it. As they drifted to sleep that night, the whispers of the past seemed to echo through the walls, urging them forward on a path they could neither predict nor turn away from. Chapter 4: Echoes of the Past. Winter's breath had settled over Ashurst, blanketing the village in frost and casting a quiet stillness over the countryside. Emma and Jake's house stood transformed, not just by their renovation work, but by the aura of discovery that seemed to hum through its walls. Each room carried traces of the journey they had undertaken, half-finished projects mingled with scattered notes, historical documents, and sketches from the diary. In the living room, their war room had grown into a sprawling tapestry of interconnected clues. Emma stood before it, arms crossed, her eyes tracing the lines of red thread Jake had pinned to connect key points in the diary. The wall told a story of intrigue, secrets, and moral conflict, but it was incomplete. "We need more," Emma said, her voice breaking the stillness. "There are gaps we can't fill just from the diary. If this is going to hold up to scrutiny, we need corroboration." Jake, perched on a stepladder adding another pin to the web, nodded. "I've been thinking the same. The safe houses Montgomery mentions, there has to be some record of them. Military archives, maybe?" Emma turned to him, determination lighting her face. "And the locals. Evelyn mentioned rumors about wartime meetings in barns and abbeys around here. What if the people of Ashurst know more than they realize?" Their plan took shape quickly. Emma would continue searching through local historical societies, libraries, and archives, while Jake focused on speaking to villagers who might have inherited stories from their parents or grandparents. Together, they hoped to piece together the broader context surrounding the diary. Emma's first stop was the library at Kent University, where she spent hours combing through dusty volumes and fragile newspaper clippings. Her persistence paid off when she unearthed a series of articles from the early 1940s referencing unexplained activity in rural Kent. One clipping, dated 1942, mentioned the requisition of private homes for classified wartime purposes and hinted at secretive military operations in the area. "Montgomery's meetings could have taken place in one of these houses," she murmured, jotting down notes. The evidence was circumstantial, but tantalizing. Jake, meanwhile, found himself at the village pub, notebook in hand, chatting with anyone willing to share a story. An elderly man named Arthur, nursing a pint by the fire, leaned in conspiratorially when Jake mentioned the diary. "I remember my father talking about soldiers coming through Ashurst during the war," Arthur said. "Said they'd meet in the old abbey on the edge of the woods. Quiet lot, always at night. Never knew what they were up to. But my dad reckoned it was something important." Jake scribbled furiously. "The abbey, does it still exist?" Arthur nodded. "What's left of it? It's mostly ruins now, but you can still see the foundations. Been there for centuries." By the time Emma and Jake reconvened at the house that evening, their findings had added new layers to the tapestry. The abbey, the requisitioned homes, and the diary's references to safe houses all began to form a clearer picture. The couple decided to visit the abbey ruins the following day. Wrapped in scarves and thick coats, they trudged through the snow-covered woods, the crisp air biting at their cheeks. When they reached the abbey, its crumbling stone walls seemed to rise out of the earth like a ghost of the past. "This place must have been magnificent once," Emma said, her voice hushed. She ran her hand over the cold, rough stone, imagining the figures who had walked these halls in a different time. Jake pulled out a flashlight and began exploring the ruins. In one corner, he spotted what looked like scorch marks on the stone. "Emma, come look at this." She joined him, kneeling to examine the marks. "Could be from a fire, or maybe lanterns. If this was a meeting place, it would make sense." They spent hours documenting the site, photographing everything and taking notes. The abbey, though silent, seemed to whisper its secrets to them, its stones bearing witness to events long forgotten. Back at home, Emma and Jake laid their new evidence alongside the diary's entries, the picture growing sharper. They were uncovering a narrative that had been hidden for decades, a story of clandestine wartime meetings, unlikely alliances, and moral dilemmas that transcended the battlefield. As they worked, Evelyn visited to review their findings. She was visibly impressed. "You're building a strong case," she said, examining the photos from the abbey. "The pieces are coming together, but there's still one question you'll have to answer. What do you want to do with this story?" The question hung in the air, heavier than the winter clouds outside. Emma glanced at Jake, her thoughts mirroring his. They had discussed the possibility of publishing their findings, but hadn't yet decided how or when. "We want to share it," Emma said finally. "But we want to do it right. This isn't just about Montgomery or Hess. It's about the complexity of history and how it shapes the present." Evelyn nodded approvingly. Then proceed carefully. The world needs more thoughtful storytellers. That night, as snow fell gently outside, Emma and Jake sat by the fire, the diary open between them. They had come so far, uncovering not just the secrets in the brickwork of their home, but the hidden layers of humanity within history itself. Emma leaned against Jake, her voice soft. "Do you ever think about what Montgomery and Hess would say if they knew we found this?" Jake smiled faintly. "I think they'd tell us to listen to the past, but also to make our own decisions about the future." The flames crackled in the hearth as they fell silent, the weight of their journey resting lightly now. The echoes of the past had found a home in their hearts, and they knew their story was far from over. Chapter 5: The Turning Point. The arrival of spring brought life back to Ashurst. The frost melted into vibrant greens, and the air buzzed with the hum of renewed energy. Emma and Jake's house, once a renovation project, now stood as a sanctuary for their discoveries. The diary had transformed their lives, intertwining them with the hidden stories of the past. Yet, the question of what to do next lingered like an unspoken promise. One morning, Emma stood by the bay window, watching the sunlight dance across the village green. On the table beside her lay an invitation from a historical journal requesting an exclusive interview about their findings. Jake entered, holding 2 mugs of coffee, and saw the look of uncertainty on her face. "Still thinking about it?" he asked, setting the mugs down. Emma sighed, turning to face him. "It's not just about the diary anymore. It's about how we present it, how we handle the backlash if people aren't ready to hear this story. What if it's misunderstood? What if it's misused?" Jake sat beside her, his hand covering hers. "That's why we're doing this together. We've been careful so far, and we'll keep being careful. But hiding it isn't the answer." Emma nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Then let's do it. Let's share the story, but on our terms." With Evelyn's guidance, they began drafting an article that detailed the diary's discovery, its historical context, and their journey. The tone was measured and respectful, focusing on the complexities of war, morality, and leadership, rather than sensationalizing the relationship between Montgomery and Hess. The article included excerpts from the diary, carefully selected to highlight its significance without overwhelming readers. They emphasized that the diary was not definitive proof of Hess's motives or Montgomery's actions, but rather a glimpse into the nuanced realities of wartime decisions. As they worked, they sent the diary to a trusted expert for authentication. Weeks later, the report confirmed its legitimacy, bolstering their confidence in moving forward. The article was published in a respected historical journal, accompanied by a brief announcement in the local newspaper. The response was immediate and polarizing. Historians and scholars praised the discovery, hailing it as a valuable addition to understanding the complexities of World War II. However, critics questioned the diary's interpretation and raised concerns about revisiting Hess's role in the war. Emma and Jake took the reactions in stride, knowing their findings would challenge established narratives. They hosted a small gathering at their home, inviting Evelyn and a few local historians to discuss the diary's impact and the ethical considerations of its release. During the gathering, Evelyn raised her glass in a toast to Emma and Jake for their courage and dedication to uncovering the truth. History is rarely simple, but it's always worth exploring. As the months passed, the story of Montgomery and Hess began to ripple outward. Conferences were held to discuss the diary's implications, and articles appeared in major publications exploring the complexities of their relationship. Emma and Jake found themselves at the center of a global conversation, their modest home in Ashurst becoming a beacon for historians, journalists, and curious visitors. Despite the attention, they remained grounded. Emma channeled her reflections into a series of essays paired with illustrations inspired by Montgomery's sketches. Her work gained recognition, with one essay published in a prominent historical magazine. Jake, meanwhile, became involved in local history projects, organizing events to celebrate Ashurst's wartime heritage. Their lives had transformed in ways they never anticipated. The house that once symbolized a new beginning for their family had become a living archive, a place where the past and present converged. It was no longer just a home, it was a testament to the enduring power of truth and discovery. One evening, as the sun set over Ashurst, Emma and Jake sat on their back porch, watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. The diary rested on the table between them, its pages now preserved in a protective case. Emma looked at Jake, a soft smile on her lips. "Do you think we've done the right thing?" Jake reached for her hand, his voice steady. "I think we've done what we could. We've listened to the past and shared its stories. The rest is up to the world." The air was filled with the gentle rustling of leaves, a sound that seemed to echo the whispers of the past. As they sat together, the weight of their journey felt lighter now, replaced by a sense of peace and purpose. The diary had brought them more than history. It had brought them closer, to each other, to their community, and to the shared human story that connected them to the world. They were no longer just homeowners or renovators. They were custodians of a legacy, guardians of a truth that had waited decades to be told. Epilogue: Guardians of History. Years passed, and the house in Asher stood as a beacon of history and discovery. Emma and Jake had long since finished their renovations, their once dusty fixer-upper, now a warm, inviting home filled with memories of love, laughter, and purpose. But it was more than just a home. It had become a place of pilgrimage for historians, artists, and storytellers, all drawn by the legacy of the diary and the couple who had brought its secrets to light. Emma, now in her 50s, sat by the bay window where she had always imagined her reading nook. Sunlight streamed through the glass, illuminating the room and the framed sketches that adorned the walls. They were reproductions of Montgomery's drawings, paired with Emma's essays that had since been compiled into a critically acclaimed book. The diary itself rested in a shadow box on the mantel, preserved as a piece of history too important to be forgotten. Jake entered the room, carrying 2 cups of tea. His hair was flecked with gray, but his smile was as warm as ever. "You've got visitors," he said, setting the cups down. "A couple of university students here to ask about the diary." Emma chuckled. "I suppose it's our turn to be the storytellers now." The students were just the latest in a long line of visitors who had come to learn about the diary and the house that had hidden it for so many years. Some came with questions about history, others came seeking inspiration for their own journeys of discovery. Emma and Jake welcomed them all, their home a living archive of the past and a reminder of the enduring relevance of truth. The impact of their discovery continued to ripple outward. Conferences about World War II often included discussions of the Montgomery Hess diary, and scholars debated its implications in essays and books. The story sparked a broader examination of wartime alliances, the gray areas of morality, and the ways in which history was written and rewritten. Despite the attention, Emma and Jake remained grounded. They were content to live quietly in Ashurst, nurturing their community and fostering a love of history in others. Jake had taken on a role as a local historian, organizing events and workshops to celebrate the village's heritage. Emma continued to write, her reflections on history and humanity finding their way into magazines and journals around the world. Their home became a hub for storytelling, a place where people gathered to share their own discoveries and learn from one another. Children from the village often visited, wide-eyed as Emma recounted the story of the diary and the journey it had set in motion. "The walls truly had ears," she would tell them with a smile, "and they had stories to tell. We were just lucky enough to listen." As the years went by, Emma and Jake's legacy grew. Their home became a symbol of the power of curiosity and the courage to seek the truth. The diary remained a cherished artifact, its pages continuing to inspire new generations to question, to explore, and to embrace the complexities of history. And though they had long since finished their renovation project, Emma and Jake never stopped uncovering stories. For them, the journey of discovery was never ending. Each new chapter a reminder that history was not just a series of events, but a tapestry of human experiences, woven together, waiting to be understood. In the quiet evenings, as they sat together by the fire, they often reflected on the path they had taken. It was a path they could never have imagined when they first set foot in the house on that cold autumn day. But it was a path they were grateful for, one that had taught them the value of listening, to each other, to the past, and to the stories that connected them to the world. Their house, once just a fixer-upper, had become something far greater, a sanctuary for the past, a celebration of the present, and a legacy for the future. And so, Emma and Jake remained, the quiet guardians of history, their lives forever intertwined with the secrets in the brickwork.